Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Creep Me Out with Tarot Reader Peter. And
do you agree that when bad things happen, they happen in threes? Or is that just a stereotypical myth?
I hear that a lot, and I am Peter Anthony Riley III.
Ooh.
So
yeah,
I don't know how I feel about being labeled as bad things happening in threes, you know?
Okay. Because if that's the case, I've had two incidents now this week where something bad has happened.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, what's the third one? Where's that going to be?
Okay.
You're expecting it. It's coming around the corner.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a guest today.
Yeah. Guys, we have a guest. This is Andrew.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome to the pod. He is in a couple of different bands. He is in a band called Heavy on the Heart. They are great. They're on Instagram. I saw them live last year. He's also in a band called Title Holder. Check both of those out on Instagram. And then he does acoustic stuff on Instagram as ANA Sounds, I believe, right? All right, awesome. And he's got some good stories for us today.
Check it out.
Yep. And, share the fact that you told us right before about the tongue.
Oh, the tongue thing? Okay. Well, I figured it'd be a fun way for you to get that into and make us all uncomfortable. But, I saw this a long time ago. I don't remember what it was, but, it was just one of those, weird, numbers of interesting facts. And one of them was, did you know your tongue is never in a comfortable position in your mouth? And then you're sitting there and you're like, crap, wait. And then you're trying to move your tongue in a comfortable spot and you realize it's never in a comfortable spot.
Yeah. And you know why I wanted you to share that? Because today I've got a good story that we'll get into later in the episode, but it talks a little bit about how your brain protects you from some interesting stuff in your daily life. Something like you're not aware that your tongue is in an uncomfortable spot until you become aware of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden you're hyper aware of it.
Right.
And it really speaks to the way that the brain has so much control over your perception of the world. And I love that because we've got some good stories about stuff like that today.
Since Andrew mentioned it, I literally have not stopped thinking about the placement of my tongue right now.
Thank you for...
I'm thinking about it now. I'm it's always pressed up against something.
You're welcome.
I cannot unsee it now.
Thank you for this curse, Andrew.
Yeah.
Hopefully in the next 5-10 minutes it'll just be a thing of the past and you'll forget it.
I hope so.
So I don't know what story you want to start with today, but I'm going to let you set the scene. Do you got something you want to go into?
I'm really excited you're here, by the way.
Yeah, we're really
You're going to tell me so much about you already. And I'm
really?
Yeah.
I've been really excited waiting for this too. It's been a really exciting bit of time where I've been actually listening to you guys' episodes for a while. I'm like, oh, I really can't wait to get on this because I've always tried to, I've talked about a few of these stories with a lot of my friends and stuff like that. And, they like it and they think it's cool, but to be on a show like this that actually focuses on these types of things where you can share with other people and also hear other stories as well. It just opens your mind up and creates more wisdom for yourself to know what's out there or what's in the other dimensions of worlds too.
Exactly. And I love strange, inexplicable stories because our humanity goes back so far telling stories, and it's these are the modern stories,
Yes.
This is the part of our modern life that is still legend,
exactly.
So
yeah. So what I wanted to really get into is kind of 3 occurrences that have happened throughout several years on the street around the corner from where I grew up in Islip. There's a street called Brook Street.
Okay.
I'm allowed to say towns and streets.
Yeah. This is Captain Doc's everybody over here. So.
Perfect. Yeah, understandable.
I'll be giving out first, last names, email. No.
Social security numbers.
Social security numbers.
So there's this street called Brook Street, literally a half a block around the corner from my house in Islip that I grew up in ever since I was 4 years old.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of different strange occurrences happening over several years there. Well, the first one that happened, and I'll go in order too of when they had happened. A year or so right after I graduated high school, a kid that I knew that was also in my same grade. We weren't closest friends, but we were acquaintances. Maybe we'd see each other outside of school once in a blue moon. And he actually got murdered over there.
Oh my God!
Oh, wow.
And Brook Street. Let me explain Brook Street. So it's a good stretch of road. So for one half of it is straight up just homes on both sides, and the other half is just straight up forest on both sides when you're driving down it with only 4 or 5 light posts going the whole way. So it can be pretty creepy and ominous already just going through there at night.
Yeah.
So, my friend or acquaintance that I knew going to school with gets murdered there by someone else that was also in our class grade there.
What the fuck?
There was, I'm not going to get into the full story of it much. I'm not even going to really drop names, but from what I remember, after he had killed him, he had, I think he had just, he didn't know where to put him, so he kind of just like, I think he made sure that he could sink to the bottom of one of the lakes that's over there.
Mm-hmm.
So it took like a scuba team to go in there, like I think 3-4 days later after searching the whole forest and realized they couldn't find him. Like, well, let's search the lake, and they found his body half decomposed already at the bottom of the lake.
Wow.
And pulling him out, and that was that. And, that was one of the craziest stories to come out of my town in Islip, because Islip doesn't really have much going on for itself. So
yeah, I can imagine that like reverberating and affecting the whole.
And all of Brook Street was closed down for that whole entire week and a half, I guess, as detectives were going by. And I even had a detective come to my house too, because I'm like the 27th, what's it called? Like when they go down the list of people that are not affiliated, but just of people that can get answers or anything. And the guy came, the detective came to my house like, hey, we know you knew about this guy. Did you know any other information? I'm like, honestly, no. Like, this was huge news to me, and this is very scary. It's happening half a block around the corner from my house. Like, yeah, he's like, well, here's my card if you hear anything. I was like, all right, I got a detective's card. And I'm like, fresh out of high school. And like,
yeah, I was going to ask you, like, did it ever feel like it was getting to the point where, like, you felt, I'm being questioned right now and I need an alibi? Like, I can't imagine the stress, or I guess it didn't get that far, but you know what I'm saying? Like
making sure he wouldn't think it was me or something like that?
Because you don't ever want, like, being like, hey, we're investigating a homicide. They're speaking to you, you're like, fuck.
Personally, I mean, I wasn't really too scared, because I mean, I had nothing to hide. I knew that I was okay, and they did too. They knew I was like very much not involved, but like just to be involved with it was like a really like interesting thing, especially for that age. And it's having a murder happen of people at our age group that back then, we're talking like just under 21 still. Not really able to drink, and you're having this type of situation happen. You're like, wow. So Brook Street became a pretty ominous thing from that moment on to me. And then like about 2 to 3, maybe 4 years later, I'm coming back from like a friend's house. Not really under the influence, but I did smoke a little bit of weed. It's okay. But I was already sobered up by then and already driving home. It was like probably 10:45 and 11 o'clock at night. It was really quiet, and I'm coming down Saxon Avenue to get towards where I'm at Comac Road, and it's the first half section where you go through the forest first. So before I even make a right to start going down this street into the forest, all of a sudden I'm like looking out my window. I didn't even have my music on, because I was just in one of those like nights where you just drive and you don't really want any music on, just kind of cruising. Of course. I was having that night where it was just complete silence. No one else was at this 4-way, private little road intersection for me to make that right. And I'm about to make the right. I'm looking out my window, and I see this boomerang-shaped metallic object with orange orbs on the back ends of it, floating at about 150 feet at like an idle speed, not making a single sound. And I'm like, what the heck am I looking at? Whatever I'm looking at, it's either like extraterrestrial, or it's so highly technologically like by the government that we have never seen it, or they don't talk about it much, because it was like straight up boomerang. I'm like, I've seen UAVs and like whatever stuff that they use in the armies online. I see what they look like. This did not look like that.
Can I interrupt you really quickly?
Yeah.
If you look and listen to a lot of these accounts, that's a common detail mentioned. The fact that it is being propelled silently, with no sort of visible propulsion, with no sound even.
It was like the lowest and quietest hum that you could ever imagine. It was wild.
What's interesting too is that last week we had Kayla and Carson, and they were talking about seeing orbs when they were in the cemetery. They also mentioned that it was glowing orange orbs. So it's just interesting. It's just an interesting.
Those two were
detail.
like in the Air Force.
Yeah, they were in the Air Force too. So
really?
Yeah, Carson's a flight.
And they can identify anything really quick on that.
Totally.
So, and they couldn't even make out what it was. Right? Orange orbs too.
Wow. They were like, that wasn't any sort of craft that we know of.
I just think that's an interesting detail.
It is. You hear it all the time. That's such like a common. As soon as you said that, I was like, no way.
Right. So I'm seeing this thing. I'm like, all right, well, at this point I like froze because I was like, what am I looking at this point? And mind you, like it's hovering right over the street that on Brook Street that I have to start turning on to start going into the area that's forest, and it's like not off to the side, it's directly above the street.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is weird. I start turning the car to make around, turning with my body. And now I'm literally like, on Brook Street, just turned onto Brook Street, and I'm looking in front of me in the window, and it's like that distance, like that 45 up while I'm driving.
Yeah.
And I swear, you guys have played Halo before?
Of course.
You know when you get the active camouflage or whatever, and you just
Oh,
immediately go invisible slowly, it becomes clear.
Yeah.
That's what happened with this aircraft. I'm watching it, and it pitched up a little like this, and then just went invisible in front of my eyes like that.
Whoa.
I'm like,
Whoa.
I got goosebumps when I was looking at it, like all over my arms. I'm like, what just happened? What the heck? What's going on? And then it's like, all right, here, and it goes a little downhill into the forest area before it begins to be total forest. And right when I was about to start going down this little part of the street that goes downhill and then into the forest, I gunned it. I went like 80, 90 miles an hour and a 30. I was like, have fun abducting this motherfuckers, and I gassed it. And I just, I blew through like 2-3 stop signs because I thought maybe this was like what it was gonna do. It was gonna just go invisible and then maybe suck me up. It probably saw me behind it. I don't know. I probably my headlights or something.
Can I ask, like, as you're experiencing this right now, do you have like goosebumps, hair, but standing up?
That's what I was saying. My hair on my arms were standing up like crazy.
You just felt like
I felt like a weird light static over my arms and my whole body.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if just because of me being in complete shock or something.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe that something like that was so quiet, and it was large. It was like a wide boomerang ship. Just went invisible in front of my eyes. And that's why I made sure to stress in the beginning of the story that I was not under any influence.
Right.
And even if I was fully under marijuana, I still have yet to this day, I've never seen anything under marijuana. I don't see, unless it's ever laced or something. I don't do that type of stuff.
That sort of reaction just kind of, to me, that sounds like you're just like sitting there like complete disbelief. Like you cannot logically.
Like my whole world was being like completely restructured.
Yes.
Because of either technology that the government has never shown anybody, and what I was looking at was top secret. Or it was not from this world. It's either one or the other. That's the way. There's no other way to pin this. It's either one or the other.
I asked you how you felt because just not too long ago, remember when I told you this?
Like
I saw something in the sky that I cannot explain whatsoever. And as I was looking at this thing, that's how I felt. Like I was just like transfixed, completely. I wouldn't say like I wasn't like terrified, but like just like
shocked.
I'm in shock and like in awe of what I am seeing because I know. Because I know what I'm looking at, you know? You know what I mean? Like,
it's insane. It's insane.
Yeah, there's just no explanation.
Right.
That's crazy. Please continue.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So I'm gunning it, trying not to crash. And I just make the quick corner to go around in my house, and I sped walked into my house and just went to my room and then just sat there on the edge of my bed. I'm like, maybe I should sit up because if they followed me home, they're gonna come through that door right now. Or fuck it, they might just come through the wall because who knows? Who knows? I sat there for a good hour like waiting for them to come because I was like, I probably provoked them to go invisible or something. Something happened and I tried to escape an abduction. I don't know, but all I know is I'm gonna go 80 to 90 miles an hour right now because you're not gonna have fun catching that. Usually when people get abducted, they're standing still and they're going up. Okay, well, try to pick up a whole car going 90 miles an hour. Let's test your abduction skills.
It felt like it was like unfinished. You know what I mean? Like you still felt like
I felt like there was supposed to like maybe and for all we know, hey, maybe they did come in my room after I fell asleep, took me up, probed me or whatever, and then just erased my memory of that and put me back in the bed.
You just have no memory.
For all we know,
that's the scariest part, right?
I got this tattoo after that.
There you go.
Up here.
Dude.
I got it's
I just had this.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Literally like a couple days ago.
That's awesome.
A couple days ago.
The bulb from this UFO is actually on my vein. So when they draw my blood, they just gotta poke the bulb.
Oh, that's sick.
Perfect target.
That's so cool.
Little fun thing I got on my tattoos. Yeah. So that's another occurrence that's another occurrence that's happened at that street. And then a few years even after that, this time I was under the influence. I won't say what. And I remember seeing this black gaseous orb down that street. I was going for a walk around the block, And I thought to myself, like, sometimes when you're under the influence of stuff, like, you use a higher percentage of your brain's function. I'd like to think that, average humans use about 10 to 12. And like geniuses that are very antisocial, can't get along with anybody, they only use like 15 to 16.
Yeah.
Right.
But like, I believe when you're under the certain influence of certain stuff, you use an extra maybe 20, 25 for that temporary amount of time, like maybe 6 to 7 hours.
I subscribe to that idea.
Yeah,
Right?
I agree with that.
So I believe in that time, our brains are able to see and feel different frequencies and dimensions that are on this earth that we don't visually see on a sober eye,
Faithfully.
like an ethereal plane.
100%.
Yeah, I
you know?
agree with that too.
I've thought about that for a long time. I'm like, there's got to be something about that, and like whatever I saw was just really, really, it was really ominous. It was like I said, it was a gaseous black orb from like the wall here to that wall. It's a pretty wide orb.
Wow.
Whoa.
3 feet off the ground, like about like right there.
Yeah.
Like
And-
a wall of black smoke.
Just a ball of black smoke.
Whoa.
That's huge.
And
that is huge.
And I remember seeing it, like, there was a guy that was actually walking. I don't know if he had any relation with it or not, but, like, there was a guy that was walking, on the road coming towards us from a distance, and this black smoke literally crossed underneath one of the street light posts and was behind him now. And I could tell it was behind him because his body was still in front of the smoke and you could see it. It wasn't like he went in front of it and his body was gone.
Yeah.
So this orb was following him, I am assuming, or something.
Yeah.
And I knew right when I saw it cross and it was behind him, that's when I had to make a left to keep going around my block. Anyway, I'm like, I'm not going to stick around and see what that's about. I'm good. I'm going to keep going on my nice little nightly walk here.
Yeah.
And good night.
Now, let me ask you, in that moment, was it like, did you have fear?
A little bit.
Yeah, okay.
A little bit. At that one made me a little concerned.
Yeah, because we always kind of say, like, I feel like you can judge the I don't know what the word is, the
threat level.
The threat level,
Yeah.
Based
of
on
the
your
experience,
fear
based on how
response.
afraid you are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different if it's like someone's coming after you trying to kill you, but
Right,
like,
right.
if you see something inexplicable and you're like,
Mhm.
you're like feeling like, oh, actually, I feel really at peace.
Mhm.
Then you
Yes.
it might be something.
Right.
Good.
It's like a gut feeling type
Exactly.
of thing, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. My gut was telling me that whatever it was like this bad, dark, really negative, evil energy.
Yeah.
That's all my gut was telling me in that
Yeah.
moment. I don't know why. It just instantaneously that's what it was for me. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this seems really bad. I'm glad that, like, timing wise, I'm seeing this right when I have to start going this way now.
Yeah.
That this is not a lot closer from when I have to start going that way now.
Yeah.
That was a pretty interesting occurrence on there. So yeah, those were like 3 crazy things that happened on Brook Street.
Wow.
Growing up there within a span of like a 6 to 8 year period.
Yeah.
That street is cursed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to be
If
cursed.
you guys want to come visit us sometime, let me know. I'd love to in the
I
daytime.
absolutely would. you guys know about Sweet Hollow Road, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I was on that road for about like 2 hours today, probably.
Oh, yeah.
Driving back and forth.
Mhm.
Now.
That place is spooky. I'd never been there before.
Oh, yeah.
I went there in high school and did the whole Mount Misery park at the bottom of the hill, put your car in neutral and let the
Oh,
souls
yeah,
push
I
you
saw
away.
that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw
And our
that.
car did move. I don't know if that means confirmed or not, but it
No,
was
I-
it was creepy.
Wow.
there's definitely like an ominous feeling to that because I didn't even know I was on Sweet Hollow Road as I was on it, and as I was driving along this place, that's the first thing I probably thought was, whoa, this road is like, I don't know. I felt like an energy
Yeah.
driving on it even, and
Yeah.
I was just like completely like by myself. It was the middle of the day, mind you.
Yeah.
It's not like it was nighttime or anything like that. And still, I could not shake this feeling. I was like, there's something up with this road.
Yeah.
Or, I
Right.
couldn't quite pin it until after the fact. And I was like, oh, wait, that's so
Yeah.
interesting. I've heard countless stories
Yeah.
from people,
Right.
about that road. So I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
That's
And
crazy.
For the audience, Sweet Hollow Road, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the legend of it. Is that like a school bus crashed off a bridge or something like that?
I didn't even know there was a legend.
Yeah, same. I didn't even know there was a story either.
then I'm pretty sure this is either I'm mixing it up and this is Mount Misery, but I think Mount Misery and Sweet Hollow Road are the same thing.
Okay.
So a school bus crashed off of a bridge during like a snowstorm,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the kids died. Right, rest in peace. And the legend is there's this certain bridge that the school bus crashed off of, and if you park your car at the bottom of that bridge and you put your car in neutral and you sit there at night in the silence, apparently your car will start to get pushed up the hill, like kind of against gravity. Like I said, I did that in high school.
My ex-girlfriend has a wild Olivia. She has a crazy story.
Oh yeah,
on that about that street.
We'll have to get it for the pod
that was spooky.
Yeah.
Wow, just it would really push you up, like defying like physics and all
that.
Just...
It felt like disturbing,
wow.
to be in the car. Like it didn't feel normal.
I'll even tell her story. It's super quick. Yeah. But basically, she was on that road with like 3 friends that night, and they got pulled over. They got pulled over by a cop, actually. Now, if you've been on that road before, it's super narrow. It's like literally one lane.
Yeah.
You know, you can hardly get 2 cars down there. So they get pulled over by this cop, and Olivia was driving. Everybody else was smoking. So they're fucking panicking. You know what I mean? Like, this is they're freaking out. They're losing their mind. You know, and she says that like this cop like approached her. When he bent down, she says, this is like an interesting detail. I love this detail. It's so creepy to me. She said that as he bent down to speak to her, she couldn't see his eyes because of the shadow, because it was dark.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so she just saw like
mouth down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And she said that, I don't know if it was because she was still under the influence or what, but she said that she had this really strange interaction with this police officer. And at the end of it, he just like let them go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just lets them off, says, be careful around here. No ticket, nothing.
Yeah.
This car, this police officer leaves, right? Starts driving away, and because of the fact that the roads are so narrow, there's nowhere else to go, Olivia starts following this police officer. She's only a couple of feet behind this car.
Yeah.
And at one point on that road, and I experienced it today, there's a sharp bend kind of.
Yep.
She says that as soon as they hit that bend, that cruiser just vanished.
Whoa.
Nothing. Gone.
What?
Just, was driving in front of them 1 second. She lost the visual of the cruiser.
For like a few seconds.
For just a second as she followed that bend around, and the cruiser was just gone.
Wow.
And they freaked out and just immediately drove home, and like the night ended there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's pretty crazy.
Pretty creepy. And I've heard a couple of like apparitions being seen on that road.
You know what would be ridiculously creepy or / funny? Imagine the cop did give them a ticket. Like, well, what do I do?
Yeah, and he's still a ghost.
The cop's like, a ghost gave me a ticket. Do I even like pay this?
Do I have to show up to court?
Yeah, right. Is there a special court?
Yeah.
Oh, the court's at the cemetery on this gravestone?
Yeah. That's crazy.
That's funny.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my Sweet Hollow Road.
So guys, I got a good story for you today. I've been waiting so long to tell this.
I know you have.
And now, at first, I didn't tell a lot of people about this because I question if people would think that I'm losing my mind. So, the reason why, let me preface. It was like December. I had just eaten a little bit of magic mushrooms. Not a lot. I've consumed magic mushrooms many times in my life.
Who hasn't?
And so in this particular moment, I wasn't like tripping very hard. I kind of just had like, a little bit of little bit visuals, like a little bit of weird feel going on, like a body high, whatever. And so the night started. It's like 11 p.m. and I just ate the mushrooms. And I started watching the movie The Boy and the Heron, which is a Studio Ghibli movie. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching it, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen that movie. It gets to a point.
Yeah, the same either.
No, it gets to one point where the kid goes down to like this lake, and there's all these like frogs and animals that are like coming out of the lake, like, and they're all like making weird noises, like croaking, and they start to like crawl over him or whatever. And I'm watching this, and I love creepy, like trippy stuff. So I'm like super into it. And all of a sudden, in the middle of this scene, I get struck with this idea. I'm like, I need to go to the water right now. And I text Lorraine, and I text her, I'm like, take me to the beach. And she's in like the other room, like she's like 10 feet away from me. And she yells across the house, she's like, yeah, you want to go to the beach for real? And I'm like, yeah, will you take me? She's like, yeah. So we drive to the beach, and we like to go to a beach that's like kind of far away from us. So we drive like 40 minutes. We get to this beach, and we walk down the boardwalk, we get onto the sand, and this is like the peak of the mushrooms for me, right? And I'm looking up at the sky, and it's so entirely clear. Like, I could see more in the sky this night than I've seen in the sky on Long Island, like maybe ever in my entire life.
And there's stars.
What's up?
There's stars.
The stars, yeah. Like of the stars, you could see like the nebulas a little bit. Like you could see everything like so clear. And this was like not because I was on mushrooms. This was just because the sky was super clear.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And there was not listen. And there was not a lot of light pollution. So I'm looking up at the sky, and I'm feeling this like really connected feeling. I'm feeling like the universe breathing around me, which is very normal for mushrooms. You when you're in nature on mushrooms, that I think is the first thing you feel is like everything kind of breathing with you.
I agree.
So I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that. I'm looking at the sky, and I'm having like this beautiful experience where like I'm looking up, and I'm a very spiritual person, and so I meditate like 5 times a week, and I close my eyes a lot in my life, and I explore my own mind a lot.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at the sky, having this beautiful experience, and I'm like, you know what? I think I need to meditate here. And so I tell Lorraine, I'm like,
that thing's bugging, by the way.
I know, that thing is going. I tell Lorraine, I'm like, I need to lay down in the sand, and it's December, so it's cold. It's like a little bit wet outside. And she's like, okay. I tell her, I'm like, I'm gonna go lay down in the sand, but like, make sure that I don't drown on accident or something, like, you know, just in case, you know, because I'm like laying towards the ocean, and she's like, all right, I got you. So I tell her, I'm like, but leave me with space, like, don't come into my bubble, like, let me just like feel the energies of the universe, you know. So I lay down in the sand, and I close my eyes, and I'm instantly, there's not darkness behind my eyes. It's really bright. And I start to see this geometric shape forming in my mind. And it forms what seems to me, do you guys know what Metatron's cube is? It's like a geometric shape that contains all other shapes. Yeah. It seemed to me to be like forming like this infinite geometric map in my mind, right? And then at the center of this, there's like a glowing orb of water. And I question in my head, like, what is this? And it, without saying words, I start to get this understanding of what I am seeing. And it was almost like it had faxed the information into my mind without saying anything to me. And I start to put together that this is an entity. This is like a god or a goddess or a spirit or an extraterrestrial. I don't know which one, but it's something. Literally, it's something. And I have that realization. And, you know, I'm a creative. I've been trying to make it creatively for a long time now. And that's hard sometimes. So in this moment, I'm telling this spirit, whoever it is, I'm like, if you give me what I need, like, I will show up for the earth, is what I'm saying. Because I'm a witch. So, like, I worship Mother Nature, you know. And I'm saying, like, I tell this spirit in my mind, like, give me what I need to be successful, and I will take care of the earth. I will do my part, and I already do. But I was kind of saying, like,
you'll do more.
I'll do more
to show your gratitude.
Exactly, and I ended it with like, I will put my blood, sweat, and tears into preserving and conserving the earth. Like, right? And now I hear a voice, and it says, "Okay, child. Like, touch, if you want it, touch the ocean." Right? So now I hear this, and I'm high on mushrooms, and I'm like,
Whoa.
if this is real, and this is what I say in my head, I don't even respond
Yeah.
to what it says. Now I know what I need to do if I want it. If this is real, I'm saying to myself, when I open my eyes, I will see a sign that proves to me that this is real and that this is not just in my head. I open my eyes. The second I open my eyes, I'm facing the ocean now.
Mhm.
The second I open my eyes, there's a boat directly in a dead straight line out in the middle of the ocean, and it flashes its light on. And then Lorraine, who's standing probably like 20, 30 feet behind me, yells, "Oh my God, a shooting star!" And a shooting star goes across the entire sky, like the longest shooting star I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
Oh,
And now it hits me. I'm like, okay, I just asked for a sign. There was two, and like undeniably so. Like I didn't even say like a shooting star. Like Lorraine said it. So I'm like, whoa, okay, so this is real. And I tell her, I tell Lorraine, I'm like, I need to go touch the water, and I'm going to like go make like a little offering, right? And she's like, okay, don't fall in. And I'm like, yeah. Which honestly, looking back on it, like, if this had been all just a trick to get me towards the ocean, like the entity was gonna like snatch me up or
it
whatever,
worked, baby.
then it would have worked.
Yeah.
But so I go and I put my hands in the ocean and I close my eyes with my hands wet, and I hear in my head, "There you go, you have it." And I go back to Lorraine and I tell her, I'm like, the ocean just gave me it. And she's like, what? What do you mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, the ocean gave me it. Like, I don't know. Like, it gave me whatever it was that I needed. I just pledged myself to it and it gave me it. And she's like, okay, crazy. Like,
Yeah.
But
how long did this happen? Like
December. So it's
this
like,
past December.
yeah, 3 or 4 months now.
Oh my God.
And my life did oddly change in a couple of weird ways right after that.
I would say so, right?
Yeah, like things started kind of working out for me like more easily since then.
Yeah.
And then like creatively, like I haven't hit like a creative block, which being a creative, that's hard to not hit a block.
I
Like
get that.
to do creative stuff every day and keep it going is tough.
It's very
And
tough.
I've been doing that since that happened to me. I've been just like painting and drawing and doing this and doing everything that I do, and with like a really constant flow of inspiration.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why I said that I like the thing about the tongue in the beginning of the episode is exactly what you were saying. Like when you're under a certain influence, it's almost like the walls of your brain don't exist. So the things that exist outside of the normal perception of those walls is just much more easier to recognize and to see.
Absolutely.
And personally, like what I came out of that experience thinking, like, I don't care if people call me crazy or not. I feel like that was like the goddess or the entity of the ocean. Like, like of the
sounds
water.
Like it.
Yeah.
It sure sounds like it.
This thing's going crazy right now.
That's wild.
Yeah, we were pointing out before we were talking. We were like, yo, dude.
Can I be honest with you?
What's that?
With both of you? The first time that I ever used psychedelics, from that point on, I was like a completely different person.
Me too.
Yeah, I think it changes your brain chemistry.
It does.
Like,
I think. Yeah, go ahead.
Dude, I was just gonna say, like, that whole experience for me personally felt like my brain was being like massaged.
Yeah.
Like when you said before, I forgot who said it before, but it's almost like like so many understandings. So many things in my life that I was questioning at that point.
Yeah.
I had answers to all of them.
Yeah.
And everything was like put into perspective. And truthfully, I have not been the same since. In a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way.
I actually have this crazy theory about it too. Like when it comes to like, in particular, only these three. When it comes to mushrooms, LSD, or DMT.
Yeah.
And three in those particular.
It was acid,
Not-
by the way.
Yeah. Not only do I feel like it raises your brain function, but like I believe like you were saying, like breaking down the wall, right?
Yeah.
I believe, and this
Totally.
this is going to be a really cool, interesting segue into astrology, actually.
Yeah.
Because I believe your sun sign is your front of your brain, and your moon sign is the back of your brain.
Ooh.
Your
Oh, okay.
ego, and then your alter ego. Everyone's
Yeah.
got it, and your conscious, and then your subconscious, right?
I like that.
Yeah.
Now check this out. You were talking about how you felt like you were changed before.
Yes.
If anybody has over these types of psychedelics.
Yeah.
I believe that when you do these enough, like you got to do them like a good 6, 7, 8 times, like you say, like your
Been
favorite,
there.
you do it pretty often.
Yeah.
You start to break down the wall between your front of your brain and back of your brain.
Yeah.
It starts to become one.
Yep.
And my theory is this, and people who have done it a lot of times and they deem that these people go crazy.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're going crazy. I think now you are now combining and mending both worlds of your ego and alter ego
Yes.
into one personality. So
Yes.
based on whatever your sun and moon sign are, will determine what that crazy personality is. Maybe you
Exactly.
won't even come off as crazy because of the moon and sun sign combo you have doesn't really
Yeah.
make you deem to come off as crazy.
Yeah, it's more stable or more.
Yeah,
like,
whichever the combo
That
is of your
makes
sun
sense.
and moon.
That
you know?
makes
makes a lot
I,
of sense.
I
Actually.
believe there's like a great wall of China between your front of your brain and your back of your brain, your
Yeah.
sun and your moon, and doing acid, DMT, or shrooms breaks that down.
Yeah, I
fully believe.
I
that,
fully
Yeah.
believe that, and I love that
Yeah.
astrology take too, and I know the TRP followers will also love that. And in my experience, like very first time I ever did mushrooms, I've never done LSD, but first time I've ever done mushrooms, I was with 2 people that I thought were really good for me, that I just in the moment of being really, first time I did it, I did the 5-gram heroic dose, which
Oh,
is
gosh.
insane. Like,
Wow.
it was like 8 hours of like pure insanity of like losing
Yeah.
my mind.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I did take out of it is like the people I was surrounding myself with were just not good for me,
That
and
matters so much.
It's
and-
interesting that you had that experience, because that's what I was thinking about the
Yeah.
first time I ever did it. Was like immediately about like the people that I was surrounding myself with.
Yeah.
and I was
It's
like,
so key.
it
Yeah.
really is.
It's so key.
really
It's
is.
so key to your high.
and I literally like compartmentalized almost my standing with each of these people.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it was like your experience where you came to the conclusion like,
Yeah.
oh, these people aren't right for me.
Yeah.
I was just able to be like, for example, like a person who I thought I had these like romantic feelings for,
Yeah.
they were not romantic
Dude,
feelings.
that's exactly what I was
Mhm.
trying to say without saying those exact words. Is that like the romantic feelings,
Yes.
the relationship that I was in, I was like forcing myself to fit into it, and my
Right.
brain was protecting me from the truth that it's
Right.
not where I belong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know
Yeah.
what? Doing psychedelics with a significant other, I think sometimes can help fast track where that sits for you guys.
Yeah,
I think,
for
you know,
sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it,
Yeah.
it's also beneficial to do with the significant other because if they are truly the right person for you, you're gonna have the best trip.
Yeah.
You're
No,
gonna have the best time together.
it
And
is
if it's
very
not, and you have a bad time, and it's like you're never gonna want to do with that person
Yeah.
again. And it's like already, even if you didn't want to take the semblance of like, well, maybe this isn't the right person for me.
Yeah.
Already, you're like, well, now I know I'm never gonna trip with you again. Like
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like I like to frame all of this as the truth that you learn that you can't put down, and psychedelics will teach you that truth.
Mhm.
And you end up with the right person, you hold their hand, it feels like you travel through a different galaxy with them.
Yeah.
You end up with the wrong person, they say 3 words to you and you might be like, I think I hate you.
Yeah.
Like, and it
Absolutely.
might not even be anything too crazy, but it's
Yeah.
just such an enlightening experience.
Mhm.
That being said, we are not condoning doing drugs. These are just experiences that we're sharing for the user understanding, basically, for
Correct.
people to understand what it's about and all that stuff.
Yeah, drugs are bad. Okay.
Yeah, don't do drugs.
Super bad.
Mm.
Now, I want to get into the meat and potatoes of this episode.
Okay,
Ooh.
meat and potatoes.
I've heard that you have a story that you would like to share.
About relating to like the same kind of topic of,
Yeah.
In a way.
in a way,
In a way.
the moth type thing. Yeah.
Well, that one's amazing too. But I was, I'll just drop the word right here. Maybe that'll jog your memory. Gorilla.
The gorilla. Yeah.
The gorilla. Wait, tell the moth story first.
Yeah.
I
So
would-
they go into each other.
Okay,
Really.
perfect.
Yeah. So yeah, no, they really do because that's why I went
Whoa.
into the whole gorilla
Whoa.
thing.
It was just hitting red, dude.
Oh yeah, I
shit.
saw that. Yeah, I just did it for a second. Wow. Oh, there it goes.
There it goes. Yeah, it's up. Sorry.
So yeah, a long time ago, when I was still with my ex, we were somewhere in Pennsylvania at like a cabin or something, and we were partaking in some stuff that puts you under the influence, and you know, I
ice
was,
cream sandwiches.
yes,
Yes.
they do things to you.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah.
I was sitting there with her and we were talking about something deep, and then all of a sudden I had my hand out, and then a white moth landed in the palm of my hand,
Mhm.
and I'm like, oh my gosh,
Wait,
what the heck?
before you get too deep into it,
Yeah.
I like the detail. I'm just gonna say you said this before, and I remember you told me this when I first met you that. You know, from talking to you just a little bit, I know you're a deep guy and definitely like a romantic. And in the moment, you were talking about like the power of love or something
Yes,
like
yeah.
that, right?
I was mentioning to her, we were talking about what the meaning of love is and what's like the true meaning of it and the feeling of it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even finish my thought or my statement because that's when the moth landed on my hand at that moment.
Yeah.
So I'm like, whoa, what the heck? And like, you know, during that whole time, this moth stayed in my hand for like in my presence for about an hour and a half. So within that time, I managed to Google.
That is crazy.
That's such a long time.
Right,
for-
an hour and a half. I'm not
Yeah.
even exaggerating.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
truly was an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I thought maybe like I flinched and maybe hurt its wings or something, and it was like, oh, now I can't fly. I don't know.
Oh,
But
dude.
it stayed there, and I had enough time to not only take a photo, which I showed you guys the photo
Yeah,
already,
yeah.
where
Yes.
I transferred this moth with my fingertips onto the top of my other finger, so I can pick up my guitar and then play with that moth on my finger, and it was the most musical, magical, spiritual moment of my life, still to this day.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I even tried to let him out because we were in like a netted outdoor room and he didn't want to leave, and then just stayed with me on my finger. And then like,
That's wild.
I'm sitting there and I'm Googling like, what is the representation of a white moth?
Yeah.
And then like under like the totem, like Native American symbolicisms of stuff, it said that a white moth represents a message from a deceased loved one from the underworld.
Ooh, okay.
Whoa.
From the underworld.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, you know, I don't know. I'm spiritual, but I don't know too much about what the terminologies for what underworld would mean in the context of
Yeah,
Native
that's-
American tribes.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask
So
you,
I'm like underworld. I'm
is that a
like,
bad
this
thing?
like a message from hell?
Or is
Like,
that just like, is their underworld just the
afterlife.
in
Exactly.
general?
That's what I thought too. I was
Yeah.
like, is this just that, or is it like something creepier?
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, well, someone's trying to say what up, you know, from hell right now. Someone that I know from hell, I guess, is trying to send me a
Oh
postcard.
no.
So I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna ignore that for now. I started sitting there, I'm like theorizing, why did this happen? And that's when I was like early on this episode when I was talking about like the higher percentage of brain function
Yeah.
Yeah.
that you use for that some temporary amount of time. I feel like I had to put this theory to the test.
Yeah.
I was like, something about my energy, my frequency was different for a little while. So that's why this moth felt either curious
Yeah.
or attracted to me
Yeah.
and wasn't afraid of me killing it. So I was like, you know what? I have to put this theory to the test. So I grabbed like a few weeks later, I grabbed more of that stuff and I went to the Bronx Zoo
Mhm.
with some friends who were
Okay.
all willing to partake. And I was like, you get up. You get it. You get it down. Everybody gets it down. And then we all took it in the parking
That
lot and
sounds
then walked.
insane.
And then we
Holy
walked
shit.
in after we took it in the parking lot and just walked into Bronx Zoo, waited for it to take effect.
Yeah.
And this goes into the gorilla story now. So
Oh,
I'm over here
fucking
because
excited.
I was truly trying to take. I didn't really tell my friends that I had this crazy thing in mind because it's one of those things where like if you want something like this to happen, you don't want to stare at the boiling pot of water waiting for it to boil.
Exactly.
You want to just like not talk about it much and just let it happen if
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't really say too much. I had mentioned it to my my ex girlfriend at the time. I'm curious. I might try to do something now. I just want to take some energy and see what happens.
Yeah.
But I didn't
You're-
say anything to anybody else.
You're basically like you're running like a spiritual thought experiment. For
Yeah.
everyone else, they're just like
They're just
high at
having a
the zoo.
good time at the zoo and they're
Yeah.
tripping.
Completely
face.
get that.
Yeah, trying to kill many birds with one stone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know, we're walking around, 45 minutes kicking. You know, we're seeing all these different animals. Really,
Yeah.
it was a really interesting, and I definitely suggest doing it.
Yeah.
Even on
No, that
mushrooms, I'm
sounds
sure it would be
great.
amazing.
That
Yeah.
sounds great.
Just take it before you go into in the parking lot before you go in, and then wait for it to take effect. Especially in a spring or summer day, the heat will make it kick in quicker than you think.
Yeah.
And then you're walking around and you're just experiencing all these exotic animals that you never even see even much when you're sober. So imagine when you're
Yeah.
on a higher state of
Holy
conscience.
shit,
Yeah.
It really it kind of humbles you
Yeah.
as a species on this planet to
Yeah.
see all these different other
Dude.
people.
Yeah. To
People, I call them people.
No,
These other species that
no.
you feel like you are with, like coexisting. Like,
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys have been to the Bronx Zoo recently.
Not
so
in a long
I
time.
love the Bronx Zoo. I've been there like 100 times in my lifetime. And I feel like it is mildly a spiritual experience to begin with. Because like you're saying, a lot of these animals you really don't cross paths with. The Bronx Zoo is one of like I think one of the best zoos we've got in the United
I'd say
States.
so.
Yeah.
I think, closest to us at the very least.
And like they have a lot of they do a lot for wildlife conservation.
Mhm.
I know that they have controversies in the past as well.
Yeah.
All zoos
All
do.
zoos do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so I can only imagine going there with a heightened mindset because going there, like you said, sober is already
It's
kind
already
of like
cool. It's fun.
It strikes you with wonder.
But
in
going there with
lot
a
of moments.
higher mindset and an open heart,
Yeah.
really, the open heart part I can't stress enough because
Yeah.
like you can go there with a higher mindset, knowing you're excited to just be around these types of stuff in that environment like that, knowing you're doing that. But when you literally let yourself become as vulnerable as possible
Yeah.
and see what happens, I think that's the other combo you have to do with this too.
Okay.
So like 45 minutes into it, now we're like by the silverback gorillas that walk on their fists and stuff.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And I'm like, all right, I'm really feeling this now. I'm peaking.
Yeah.
So, we're in the observing room where they have a thick glass between us and their area.
Yeah.
And, I'm doing my thing. I'm just observing things, really just trying to keep calm because I was peaking pretty intensely. And then I'm looking in their setup. I'm looking at their like water system, and now they have these trees that they're growing. Oh, cool, nice. And there's like 6 or 7 of them there, and one in the distance just looks at me and stares at me and just doesn't break eye contact. And then I just stare at him, and I'm not breaking eye contact. We're having a staring match now from like 50 feet away. And then he starts walking up to the front of the glass. Well, I'm just staring there, standing, frozen, catatonic, like a deer in headlights. I literally, I couldn't move.
Yeah.
Were you
I'm like,
afraid?
I wasn't afraid. That was the
No.
weirdest thing. I felt like I've never been to space, obviously, but like imagine like you're going and doing your first spacewalk and you're looking back at the Earth and you're like, holy shit, I'm really out here right now. Holy shit, holy shit, holy
Yeah.
shit.
Like
That's
almost
kind of
like
what I
so
felt.
surreal.
Yeah, that's what I felt because this primate that's very similar to us anyway
Yeah.
is now slowly walking up to me without even blinking, without even looking away,
Yeah.
and like didn't really like give me any energies yet until he came up to the front of the glass, and he's just staring at me and then stands up. And when he stands up, he's like 9 feet tall. And I'm like looking up like this,
Shit.
and I'm still catatonic. I didn't know what to think or do
Wait,
or
they're
say.
that tall? when
Yeah.
They stand up.
Yeah, they can be.
Very
Well, maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe 8 feet, 7, 8 feet.
That's still
Just
huge.
definitely
You're
taller than
giant,
us.
dude.
Definitely taller than us for
Yeah.
sure.
Whoa.
And I'm looking up. I just remember looking up for sure. And he just turns his head sideways like a dog, like when they're confused, like looking at me. He's like looking at me like he's confused looking at me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, huh? Well, what's wrong? What, is there something wrong with me? And then he just breaks eye contact and walks away. And then I was just still frozen there after he just left me there like that. And then this guy with a camera, like a really long lens, like this long, comes up behind my shoulder. He's like, hey, excuse me, can you just make him do that again really quick? I'm like, now he's the one who snapped me out because I would have just stood there still for a few minutes, not even saying, not even like my ex-girlfriend at the time was just kind of doing her own thing. I couldn't even speak to anybody because I was so frozen.
Yeah.
It was just incomplete. And also, by the way, when he was staring at me, this gorilla, I do remember feeling like an intense amount of sadness.
Oh wow.
I felt like a very intense amount of emotion for
Whoa.
a split second, and then it left me. And then, like, the continuous of just like what's going on happened.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the middle of that, though, I felt like a crazy burst of emotion and sadness for this gorilla. It was really weird.
That is.
And then it left me, though, really quick. And then he had walked away, and I'm like, what the heck? And then this camera guy came up to me, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. I gotta go. And I walked outside the observation room, and I sat on a bench just like this, and I'm like, just like, And everyone walked outside, like, hey, dude, you all right? I'm like, yeah, no, I just needed to get some air. I don't want to, like, throw them off because they were tripping hard. I don't want to, like, throw them off their journeys and whatever they were having. I'm like, no, I'm good. I just need to get some air.
Yeah.
And then I looked at my ex-girlfriend. I'm like, I think my fucking theory is right.
Yeah.
I think my job here today has been a success.
Yeah.
I think that, and then she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, remember what I told you what I was going to do when we were coming here? She's like, oh yeah, you were saying something. She wasn't as spiritual, I think, as I was going on and stuff. But she understood that, I was trying to get into something. I was trying to understand and get something from the day.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got it. I'm good. Like,
Yeah.
I figured out that there's definitely like a higher percentage of brain function that we use.
Yeah.
And I think that it's important to monitor how much interaction you can actually truly have with another living species while you're under the influence of that. Because there's definitely some sort of connection there on the frequencies we give out. Because the other species, a Venus flytrap, a moose, they all communicate through this same type of energy too, because they don't even speak each other's languages either. They're reading off body language and I think energies.
Yeah, no.
Well, that's like, you know how, first of all, I wanted to ask you, do you think this gorilla knew what you were set out to do? And like, maybe perchance because you opened your mind up to those higher frequencies, like, dude, maybe you like tuned in really quickly to fucking his, and that's why
something
like,
happened.
whoa,
Yes.
like, oh hi, like, holy shit, you understand?
It was like a river of different frequencies, and I was just flowing, just doing my own thing, not trying to look, like I was saying, not trying to stare at the boiling pot of water. Somehow though, just looking around and scanning around their whole like living quarters of how they had their whole gorilla set up. He was just staring at me already in the distance. By the time he was staring at me first before I did.
Yeah.
And then we just stared at each other at that point with that.
So,
but
my question for you too is, when you were making eye contact with him, did you feel seen? Like, you know, you saw his sadness. Do you feel like he could see yours?
Well, the only thing I got off of him was that he was curious about me. Because, like I said, when he looked at me and turned his head sideways like a dog, when they look at you like they're curious about you.
Analyzing you.
He was analyzing me. That's all I can get from that, is that he was analyzing me and reading, trying to understand, like, you're different.
Yeah.
You're different.
That is...
What is it about you that you're different? Why
really
are you...
compelling.
And I think because of the influence of what I was under, just the frequency it put me under, put me at a different frequency than everyone else in the observing room.
Yeah.
And you know, when you stick out like a sore thumb and everyone else is under the same typical frequency of being sober, you know, you stick out like a sore thumb. So I think that's the only reason why he came up to me, like looking at me like all curious, like what's up with you? There's something different about you.
Yeah, that's really interesting too, because the Bronx Zoo gets like a lot of visitors every single day.
Yeah.
So it's not even just like, you know, maybe there's like 10 people in the room. Like there's probably like thousands of people that walk through there every single day, and for you to be setting out with the intention of opening up your heart to a creature, right? And then kind of having that type of experience really does show, like, when you try to align yourself with those higher vibrations, it works.
Right.
You know,
and
like,
one of my
it's real.
Right. And one of my favorite things to do with this stuff is to combine the world of spiritualism and everything that these types of things do to our body and our brain with the world of science.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I love
We always talk about this.
Yeah, I love bridging those worlds, because there is a way to do that. There is an absolute way to build a bridge world of spiritualism and science with that stuff. And I think that's leading to how I was saying, like, you know, we give off an energy, and like even science can prove that we give off an energy.
Yeah.
Science can literally say that we give off an energy.
Yeah.
Like a what's it called? Like an actual, like, a frequency just in our energy and our vibration off the heat we give off alone. Just that alone.
That's like, you know how, okay, say for example, you're interested in a girl, and you know that she's interested in you. You can pick up on that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Obviously, you can tell without even words being said. I've had moments where, you know, I've walked into a bar, like made eye contact with somebody and been like, I know that person is like interested in me. But you take that same person, and instead of them being like, you know, looking to do that, they're instead like sad. It's like harder to pick up and read that sort of emotion than it is for something more primal, like an attraction or something like that.
Yeah.
So there are definitely like different like layers to our, I don't know, emotions. Is that the right
way?
Yeah.
I think when you have different levels of emotion, it probably changes the frequency a little bit by a few decimals. So to speak, because I mean, you're giving off like such an yourself is giving off such an expressive, different energy into the world because of how much energy I think there is in emotion. I mean, there's a lot of energy in love and heartbreak and excitedness and joy and laughter, just total energy and all that stuff. And like, I feel like, you know, obviously it has to change something within your frequency, deep in frequency wise, when you're dealing with a very, I mean, look at animals too. Like, you ever have a dog growing up, and like if you're really sad, they see that. I mean, granted, they probably can notice that you're crying, but I'm sure that they're not just basing off of your sadness of crying. That they can sense it. They're sensing the actual frequency.
No, for sure. And I have a great story that is also mildly about mushrooms and my pet bunny. Which it's a short story because it's not about the trip, it's about the bunny.
I just have a scary story regarding that.
We're ready for the scary story. So one day, me and Lorraine are like, I think we played tennis. I barbecued a whole bunch of food. We ate, and it's like,
You're a good cook.
thank you. And it's
I'll
like,
try that out sometime.
yeah,
See
thank
what
you. I
you're working
appreciate
with.
that. I cook with love. And I made a whole bunch of food. We're like sitting down to relax or whatever, and I had this mushroom chocolate bar, and
Fuck, those things are so scary.
yeah, and it was
That's what my story's about.
Is it? Oh, perfect,
Yes.
dude, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so there was 8 pieces, like 8 little squares, right?
Is this the polka dot brand?
I don't know what it was.
Okay.
I don't know. I've never messed with chocolate ever again since this moment. But on the wrapper, it said like, eat 1 to 2 for
Yeah,
elation.
and then 8 to 10 melt the walls,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
that's
something
the
like
polka.
that,
yeah.
That's the polka dot brand. Yeah.
Yes. So I say to Lorraine, I'm like, let's eat just 1, and she's like,
That's Mikey.
She says-
That's micro.
she
Yeah.
says, famous last words, "Don't be a pussy.
Let's
Let's eat the whole thing."
Shout out Lorraine.
Oh,
Yeah, shout out
man.
Lorraine. And so then we each eat 4, and
That's crazy. You're
yeah,
crazy for that.
and she had never tripped hard before.
Oh god.
And we go out into the car to smoke, and within minutes, like literally like 3 or 4 minutes, she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. She's like, I feel weird. We go inside, she hits me with, she's like, I want to stop before it starts. And I'm like,
How
Too
do you-
late now.
Yeah,
We're
how
too
do
deep.
you?
You
literally
Stop.
can't.
You can't. Go to
Yeah.
sleep. Good luck.
Actually-
Yeah, right?
Good luck.
actually, this, hopefully this will save someone's life somewhere, but the only way to stop a trip is with benzos. Benzos kill trips. So if you
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you take like a tiny, like I wouldn't do it because I've never taken Xanax before at all. But if you like take Xanax, when you're tripping hard, it will stop you from tripping.
That
Wow.
makes sense.
Yeah.
I could see
That's
that.
interesting.
I
So-
used to. I have a little bit of experience on,
Yeah.
on Xanax, and yeah, I could see that.
I learned that from a YouTuber called Psyched Substance, who like goes into details like exploring like the science about these
Yeah.
types of drugs and whatever.
Right.
But anyway, so she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm like, oh no, like we are too deep. And then we proceed to have 3 to 4 hours of nightmare trip. Like
Oh no.
horrible, dude. Like I'll just tell my part of the story. When I tell this story fully, say that this was the day that I had a full-blown energy exorcism because I was throwing up clear goo for hours, and I felt like I was purging like this negative energy from my body, and it was horrible. It was horrible.
Whoa.
At the end of it,
Clear goo.
clear goo. At the end of
Because
it,
I will say, if you do enough of those chocolates, you will throw up for them. Just because
yeah, I know. Yeah, people say that, and then they'll be like,
that's happened to me.
if you throw up, you trip even harder.
When you say clear goo, that takes
Clear
immediately
goo,
takes
yeah.
me back to the time where I was like forcing myself to like I think maybe I was super drunk,
Yeah.
honestly, if I can remember. But I also like simultaneously at that point had an empty stomach.
Yeah.
But I kept trying to purge.
Yeah.
And that's what was coming up. It's just
Clear
like
goo.
it's
Yeah.
just like a clear. It's almost like it's like
Not
phlegm,
to be
but clear.
confused with like a stomach bile.
No,
or anything,
not
right?
bile.
No, not
Right.
bile. It's
It's like a
almost
clear
like
goo.
Sticky
it's like,
clear goo.
Yeah, it's like spit,
Wow.
but like
Yeah.
Like a plasma almost.
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah, you ever see
Feely.
you know those things in the ocean? What the fuck are they called? The
jellyfish.
no, not jellyfish. The hagfish. You know what a hagfish is?
No.
A
Yes.
hagfish. They're like these like honestly horrible. They're just like literally like the worst like parasitic fucking fish that could like exist. But their main like defense mechanism is that if you touch them, they just like secrete like this like oil, this like
Yeah.
slime,
Interesting.
and that's what it reminds me of, like
Yeah.
when you see like the visual,
And-
at least in my experience.
And I was puking
Wow.
my brains out, thinking like, this is ectoplasm, and I am throwing up the demons that are haunting me.
Yeah.
or that.
And
It's
so-
one or the other, honestly.
one or the other, yeah. And so I finally come down, and I realize, I have the realization that the dosage on this chocolate must have been just way off, because, I've done a heroic dose before. I've done, since then I've done it too, so it's like,
You laugh because he calls it a heroic dose?
No, I'm laughing because of something else that I just
Oh.
reminded myself of.
but in that moment, so after the fact, I was looking at everything around me, and I wasn't tripping anymore, but everything was like, the lines were all dragging. I was seeing like trails on everything, and my bunny had been like right standing up against the little fence that separates my apartment because he's free roam, and he was like trying to get to me for hours, like trying, almost like he was like trying to get to me to like take care of me.
Yeah, he knew you were going
Wow.
through it.
He knew
that's
I was
why.
like losing my mind, yeah.
Mhm.
And so I think that, like, you know, we really do kind of have this ability to communicate on a vibrational level with
Yeah.
other beings.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
if we can do that with animals, it's not that far of a reach to think that we could do it with extraterrestrials, with ghosts, with, you know, it's kind of
Absolutely,
all
yeah.
goes hand in hand.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
So
totally agree.
crazy.
I
So-
totally agree with that.
that is
Um,
my story.
That's all.
So
that's awesome.
I don't have like as much of a spiritual story,
Yeah.
but I do have a scary story involving what you just spoke about.
We're ready.
So this happened just a couple of summers ago. We were celebrating, one of my best friends was getting married, and he had this like bachelor party planned for us, and our plan was to camp. His family had this property upstate
Mhm.
in like the middle of nowhere, honestly. And our plan was that whole weekend we were just gonna camp on the property. The property was huge. We all like brought our own tents, like whatever. So much fun, right? Great time. On that on that second night. Well, actually, hold on. I have to explain the whole day before. Sorry. On our drive up there, I drove with my friend Josh. On our drive up there, him and I were just like railing Adderall all fucking day. Because it's like a 4-hour drive or like a 2 or 3 hour drive, maybe not that long, but him and I were just like crushing up Adderall and just snorting it the entire time as we were going up there.
Mm-hmm.
Degenerate shit, you know. And whatever, we're there for a good time. So on that following morning, we didn't stop doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So we kept doing that, and the plan for that day was that we were going to kayak down the fucking Delaware River, or whatever big river is like upstate that leads wherever.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like 20 of us. There's like an entire there's like all like the groomsmen, and then all like the bridesmaids and whatever.
Yeah.
And so we go down this river, and we're on the river for like fucking 8 hours that day, and it's like middle of summer, so hot, and the entire time we're doing it, Josh and I are still just fucking railing Adderall and smoking joints the entire time. Like I'm like out of my mind at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Have either of you ever done like taken Adderall before when you
Actually,
like
I haven't.
prescribed it?
I've never had it once.
I have, but I think that it just kind of affected me how Adderall's supposed to help you if you have ADHD or something,
Really?
because I just played Skyrim for like 14 hours in a row.
I compare it to it is, to me, it's the closest feeling to like doing coke. I
Okay.
don't know if
I've
either
never
of you
done
have
coke.
any experience with that, but plenty of experience doing that shit. That shit almost fucking killed me. But anyway, that's besides the point, people. We go down this river and we have a fucking blast. It's like I remember that day so well. It was the best time ever. We go down this river, not for everyone. Some people had a terrible time on that trip.
Yeah.
But Josh and I have a great time. We get home, we shower, we get all dressed up, we go out to dinner with everybody. And on our way back, we're walking back to the Airbnb or the B&B that we're staying at. And mind you, the B&B that we're staying at is like this like classic cabin in the woods. Like,
Yeah.
We're in the middle of fucking nowhere, mind you. There's hardly any reception. There's like Amish people surrounding us, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're waking up to like Amish people singing like beautifully. They're singing amazingly, and they're like going by with their like horse caddy.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's such a surreal like experience, truly. But we go out to dinner, and when we come back, our other friend is like, "You guys want to take shrooms?" And we're like, "Yeah." So me and Josh, we're out of our minds at this point. Like literally, we've been like nonstop, not taking care of ourselves.
Yeah,
we're not
you're, like,
drinking
on a
enough.
bender.
Yeah, we're not drinking enough water. We're like whatever. We take this, and I think we took. It was one of those chocolate bars. I took two squares, right? And I should have done that. I should have maybe taken one, but
Micro it.
yeah. So, and we're sitting like this actually. The three of us are sitting like this, and we're in front of like this little campfire in the middle of the fucking woods.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts hitting, and I start getting scared immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, after the days, the previous 2 days that I've had already, I think like my body is like shutting down almost.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
enough. Like,
You've been physically exerting yourself so
Yeah.
much
Yeah,
all
and
day.
also
Only with, like-
kayaking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
in the
Like,
sun.
I had a
Yeah.
really like physically demanding day the whole
Yeah.
time. We went out for dinner, we had drinks and all that stuff, and
Yeah.
so whatever. My body's like shutting down. So I'm like, I want to go home,
Yeah.
or not. Sorry, I'm not that I want to go home. Like I want to go to bed.
Yeah.
And my other 2 friends are like, no, we're gonna go walk in the woods. Like come with us. We're gonna go walk in the woods.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'd rather be dead. So I went upstairs, and I'm the only person fucking at that B&B at this moment. Everybody's like all scattered. You know?
Yeah.
Like I said, there's like fucking like 20 of us. You know, there's,
Yeah.
there's so many of us. But somehow I'm the only person in this house. And I go into the kitchen, and I'm looking out. Like the kitchen had a sink, and there was a window right in front of that sink.
Right.
And when you looked out this window, you were just looking out at like the fucking woods.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very, very back, like as far as you can kind of see, there was like a little hill with like another tree line behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can
Wow.
like kind of make out. It's hard to describe, but you can kind of make out a path like into the woods. You can like make out the woods, you know, from where I'm like standing. And I see the 3 of us. I see me and my 2 other friends, and they're right standing by the woods, and they're looking at me. They're looking at me, and they're going like this to me. Like
And you see yourself.
I see myself standing amongst them.
Like it's a carbon copy of all 3 of you guys, just all looking back at you.
Yeah, and like the same clothes and everything, and it's all 3 of them looking right at
Wow.
me, waving.
It's like some Inception type shit or
Yeah.
something.
And I say out loud, I go, no, I'm good. I'm gonna go to bed. And so I turn, I leave the bathroom,
Yeah.
and I lay in my bed. I'm in this like little fucking twin-sized bed. I'm like trying to get to sleep, and the entire time I'm like laying in my bed, I feel like I'm on the kayak. It's rocking back and forth. Like
Yeah.
I feel
Kayak
like
would.
I feel like
Yeah.
I'm still on the open water,
Yeah.
and I'm still there. You know, I'm like still on the fucking river. I never left.
Yeah.
And so I start freaking the fuck out at this point
Yeah.
because I'm like prone to getting like seasick anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm like starting to like feel like I'm gonna like, you know.
Yeah.
So I get up and I walk out of the bedroom to go to the kitchen, and as soon as I'm like walking down the hallway, I see that now the TV is on in the living room,
Yeah.
and immediately that feeling of like you need to like puke goes away, and I'm
Yeah.
like cool. I'm like whoa.
Interesting.
Interesting. I'm like, who's in there? Because I'm the only one here. And so I walk in there, I walk in the living room, and on the television is like American Dad is playing like on the television.
Mhm.
And sat right on the couch are my 2 friends, and they're both this is what like freaked me out the most. And I have a photo of this on my phone somewhere. I'll try and find it for you guys afterwards. But
Yeah.
they already looked pretty similar to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And they were both wearing like blue jeans. They are both sat on the couch with like their shirts off, blue jeans, and they're both sitting like this, watching American Dad.
Oh.
And I saw the 2 of them like that, and I immediately was like, they're clones. Like this place is like overrun with like clones.
Yeah.
And I like saw them, took a photo of them, and then they started like fucking making fun of me because I was clearly tripping balls.
Yeah.
And that just like immediately brought me out of like the bad vibes.
Wow.
And I was just kind of like
You were
okay
feeling
from
okay after
point
that.
on.
No
Yeah.
throwing up. You didn't end up throwing up
Nothing.
at all.
No,
Wow.
nothing. But everything up until that point, I was like really. I felt like I was like testing my limits there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That is.
I feel like
That's what I got.
I mean, between like the physical exertion, the Adderall all day and everything, and
Yeah.
all the other
Like
stuff.
multiple fucking days of just
Right.
Yeah.
taking Adderall.
I feel
for
like
no
your
reason.
brain was like going through like a. Like I feel like it was like the after effects of all of that stuff. Honestly,
Tornado psychosis.
yeah,
Maybe.
honestly.
Dude,
Yeah.
And
maybe.
then like it all just compiled in at the end over there for you, and then like your brain was like, no, here's what's gonna happen, and like no, the other side of your brain's like, no, this is what's gonna happen, and like
Yeah.
you were going through it that
Yeah.
week.
For sure. It could,
Yeah.
I can't imagine
I was panicking, man.
I can't imagine the fear of looking out a window and seeing yourself.
Yeah.
Because
that's one of the creepiest things to me.
I
The
always
idea of,
thought the
like, a
same thing too.
doppelganger.
Like
Yeah.
if you were like, what would happen if you ever saw yourself like walking in the room and you're like, whoa, what the heck? Like
That's terrifying.
you
Yo,
know, outer body experience stuff.
either of you seen Lake Mungo?
no.
I won't say anything more. Go watch it.
All
If
right.
you ever
All
get
right.
a chance, if you ever want to watch a horror movie that as the credits roll, your like entire fucking skin is just covered in goosebumps and you have the hair like on the back of your neck standing up and
I'll
there's
keep
like
that
some
in mind.
tears swelling in your eyes.
Yeah.
That movie made me feel like that.
Wow.
Speaking of actually being out of your body, actually, when I was younger, I used to do this fun little trick. If you ever literally wanted to feel out of your body, if you just, I don't know if you guys have done it before, but if you just like stare into a bathroom mirror,
Ooh.
you know, like, you know, you're not trying to play like, you know, bloody, what's it called?
Bloody Mary.
Bloody Mary. You're not playing Bloody Mary. You just stare.
Yeah.
Just stand there for like 5 minutes with yourself. Like, give yourself that time and do what I did too. Like, don't stare at the boiling pot of water either.
Yeah.
Just stare for 5 minutes. Put a timer on.
Peter knows
I'm-
I'm afraid of mirrors.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Mirrors freak. No, I'm not afraid of them, but they definitely freak me. The
I
fuck
have
out.
this. There's definitely some psychology that plays into this, but like,
I think so.
I think if you ever want to just like on demand make yourself feel outside of your body, just
Yeah.
go for 5 minutes in front of a mirror and just stare at yourself, because I
Yeah.
feel like I've done that a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
And then like the more you just keep staring, you feel like you're just like, you know, especially if you play a lot of video games,
Yeah.
I feel like you now can see yourself either in
Yes.
third person.
You're
Yeah.
like,
Like from
breaking
behind.
down your own like self-image
Exactly.
or something. Like the more
Yeah.
you look at, or at least
You're
that's
able
how
to
I
disconnect from the first person and
Yeah,
connect
yeah.
to the person
feel. It's
looking back at
so
you.
fucking
Yeah.
wild.
It is really strange because mirrors are man-made. Like, you know, like how long through history did we go without really
Right,
ever
right.
having?
Dude,
Oh, have you done that a lot? Have you stared into a mirror? Because I
Yes.
assume, being which you've probably done this a lot.
Yes,
do you want to know
because
something creepy about holographic images, like holograms that we work with?
what's that?
Do you know if you were to take a hologram of
Yeah.
somebody, like say I took a hologram of you,
Yeah.
and we broke that hologram into like 1,000 pieces of like glass, and say like you picked up a shard of that glass, right? And it's
Yeah.
like of your eye. If I like took that piece and like looked down, I would see like the rest of you.
Yeah.
That's
That
how
is crazy.
that's how like
crazy.
holograms work.
That is
Yeah.
insane.
Isn't that fucking weird?
Because
Yeah.
like
What is
dimensional
that?
aspect of how they do they
Yeah.
project themselves.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's
it's nuts.
so weird.
Dude, I was gonna
So
say about being a witch and looking into mirrors. So I haven't done this much because I think this gets really intense really quickly. First, I'll just mention the basic thought process behind it. Mirror channeling, right? So mirror channeling is like sitting in front of a mirror, looking at yourself until you disassociate, and then taking whatever messages come through, which is basically what you're
Yeah.
saying.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like a disassociation feeling.
Exactly, and that is one of the key ways to disassociate yourself from your person, to have an out of body experience. But then there's something called it's like a method. What is it called? It's called like the Devil's Crossroads or something like that.
Oh,
And
sounds
it's
intimidating.
it's an urban legend, and what it is it's you take a mirror to a crossroads and you set the mirror up in between the two pathways. You light a candle in front of the mirror and you sit there, and when you sit there and look into the flame in the mirror, eventually you will open up like let's call it a portal. You'll open up a portal around you, around the crossroads, where entities, demons, angels, spirits, whatever you believe in, can come through to you and talk to you through the mirror. And they'll stand behind you and they'll talk to you as if they're talking to the mirror.
What?
And it is like it's like a ritual that people have been doing for hundreds of years. I personally can't recommend that people do it because it is supposedly, the stories that I've heard, very intense.
Yeah, I can't do that.
So
Yeah.
okay, so crossroads. You're talking about like at an intersection of just like a 4-road thing. Like,
Yes, a
something like
four-way.
that?
Yes, like a four-way intersection, and the reason they say that is because crossroads apparently are connected, are where the physical realm and the spirit realm over.
Bro,
Well, remember when I was mentioning the UFO thing? When I was at a 4-way thing, and I had to make
That's
a right
crazy.
from one road
Yeah.
in that crossroad.
Yep.
I had to make a right because this thing was like a crossroads, and I was going that way, but I had to go right onto Brook Street, and
Yeah.
this thing was hovering this way
At the
on
crossroads.
Brook Street at the crossroad.
Yeah.
that's like who's that blues guitarist?
I don't know.
You know that song? Come on.
I don't know, Mike.
You know, like the devil went down to the crossroads.
Oh, Devil went down to Georgia? You mean?
No, it's
Oh.
you ever hear that story? There's like that story of like that guitar player who he was like fucking awful, terrible.
At playing guitar or like
At
as a
playing
person?
guitar,
Oh, okay.
no, at playing guitar he's like terrible, and
Mhm.
then he like supposedly like he went to a crossroads, made a deal with the devil, showed up the next night. He's like an expert guitar player, and that's why they wrote that song. Like
Interesting.
Oh.
devil, it's like. It's like literally like the last. Remember Guitar Hero 3?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Last boss.
that song,
Oh,
Devil
Last
Went Down
boss
to
is the devil.
Georgia.
Oh, is that
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
then?
that's
the
Okay,
song, yeah.
I'm an idiot, but yeah, that's like that's what it's based on. That
Oh, wow.
supposed story, and like that guy, that was a real guy. That was a real
Yeah.
person,
Mm,
and so like nobody
That's
kind of
crazy.
knows like.
that's
Oh,
wild.
like
Wow.
did he really make a deal with the devil like at the crossroads? or
Yeah.
what? But
So guys, if you find yourself wandering through the night, make sure you check out Heavy on the Heart and Title Holder on Instagram
Absolutely.
before you sit down in front of your mirror at the crossroads.
check it
Because guys, the world is a weird,
out.
mysterious
Spooky
place, and
we take psychedelic drugs to feed into it.
exactly.